All right. I think it's connected.
It's like super slow on my end. Like it's like, oh, you're streaming. Now you're live streaming. And then the window takes forever to pop up. But I think we are. Meeting is now streaming live. Do you want to record this on your end?
Yes, I should, for evidence. Let's see.
Yeah. Like super slow on my end. Like it's like, oh, you're streaming.
Oh, I can hear you. I can hear past you. Well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. It doesn't have the record option for me, so.
Oh, okay. I'll record it and then I'll send it to you so you could edit it.
That would be awesome.
Now the evidence is yours.
That was the NSA. That was.
Okay, I'm gonna edit this real quick. And we're just gonna wait for people to come on.
Oh yeah, let me share it out.
Yes, please share it.
StariAri Toltec Shaman. Sharing. Hella videos.
Hella videos, dude. Hella. All right, so I just updated your stuff. All of your links are there. We're looking good. Hi, Dale. Got somebody watching. Okay, let me move this over. All right, so here we are with Jax Atlantis, the world famous astrologer.
How's it going, guys?
Mystic and teacher of esoteric.
I love your titles for me. It makes me sound awesome.
You are awesome.
I love mystic. Mystic is a good word.
Mm-hmm. I love it too. It always describes, every time I think mystic or mysticism, I think of Jax Atlantis. A Libra thing, I guess, you know.
Oh, thank you. We try because, you know, it makes sense. A Libra would choose mystic.
Yeah.
It's a trendy word. It's a trendy word.
It's like it describes a Libra. Yeah. Well. All right. So, like I said, here we are with Jax Atlantis. So Jax, can we talk a little bit about, not a little bit, I know it's a Libra thing that have a good, decent conversation, but
there we go.
Can we talk about when was the first time that you noticed your beautiful mystic abilities?
That's a hard one to answer because there was a bunch of weird things that happened in my childhood, and some of them I correlate possibly to mysticism, and some of it I correlate to, you know, just kind of like character traits. But there was this one story that my parents always told about how they would always go to this river to go fishing near our house that I was growing up in. And they would all try and catch grasshoppers because they're the best potential bait, you know. And so all of them would try and catch grasshoppers. They would, of course, jump away, and they're, you know, grasshoppers are really good at getting away. But apparently I was like maybe 2 or 3, and I would reach out like with this whole like Zen Buddhist thing, and I would like just pick them up. Like they would never hop away from me. So that was definitely something that was, you know, kind of weird. But I would say the first thing that was like legitimately, for me, like it's uncontested, it was a really strong spiritual experience, would be technically mediumship, because it was feeling the presence of energies that definitely were not people, and feeling them to a very strong and like a really unnerving degree. Because like when I was 13, that's when it really started to happen. And I was just honestly freaked out for like that entire year. I was freaked out for the year of like 13 and 14 about like what, you know, it happens. It was like inconsistent. It would just be sometimes. And when it was super intense. And then when I was 15, no, that's really when I started my journey. That's when I was like, I intentionally learned tarot. I intentionally started to, you know, use like scrying methods, and intentionally started to try and speak with spirits. And I just had essentially the year of 15 years old was like this sort of cacophony of just endless spiritual experiences that were really intense, like past life stuff and Tarot was essentially the really just the pathway that sort of led me into a lot of those directions. But then, as I got a little bit older, 16, 17, I got more into high school and more into, just sort of like, different social situations. And so I kind of put like all of my, basically just girls. And so the years of like 15 or 16 to like 19 was basically just girls. And just like, I sort of like, just didn't try and, explore spirituality any deeper or any of the spiritual arts or practices. But then when I got to about 20, I was like, I really need to pick up where I left off. And it sort of started me on this 7-year journey of analytically studying spiritual concepts like, restudying scrying, restudying tarot, and doing so in a much more academic manner. And the problem was I felt less connected at 22 spiritually than I did at 15. And it was blowing my mind. I was like, why on earth do I feel less connected to all this? I'm getting older, I'm getting more educated. So that should, definitely put me in a better spot, I thought. And it was at 27 that I finally had the realization that the difference between what I was going through and almost like a spiritual desert, metaphorically, with all of the study I was doing was that when I was 15 and before that, none of it was pushing for anything to happen. None of it was trying to measure it or quantify it. None of it was trying to find the right way. It was just true, genuine exploration. And so I shifted back to that. I literally put away all the books and I just started, trying experiences and energy healing, mediumship, all these things just started to flood back into my life on June 1st of 2017. And then it was like such a cosmic experience and such an intense series of experiences that it was 16 days later on June 17th that I was like, I am going to, go on Facebook as Jax Atlantis, and I'm going to start doing live tarot readings. And I would just be, a Facebook Live or whatever, and doing readings for people. And then it started to evolve into a business. Like you were bringing, God, you predicted this, that I was going to go on some extremely long, I'm sort of just completing the story of all the questions I think you're going to ask. So that's funny because you accurately predicted that. Yeah. So basically, then I started a business, I started to essentially just evolve in different ways, like not trying to sequester the business in any particular area. But essentially the last 3 years have been tons of spiritual experiences and spiritual growth in unexpected fields. Like, before 2017, I didn't even believe in astrology. And now it's the thing that like every day I'm focusing on because it's a way that my intuition can sort of operate naturally. And, but the reason I didn't have any belief in it was because, I just sort of saw newspaper horoscopes, things like that. And it just seemed like people were just peddling vagaries. And it's because, most people have no idea what astrology really is and how advanced it is, like how in depth it's supposed to go. It's never supposed to just be what's your sun sign and then I can tell you everything about you. It's supposed to be, your rising sign, your Mercury placement, your moon placement. And so that gets left out. But anyways, so my business went through so many different transformations, and that's how I am where I am now. I want to sort of just like pause so that you can actually ask another question. No, you literally only asked the question, when was your first spiritual experience? And I went on the whole story. Yeah.
You're fine. I understand the mind of the air signs. They love, because it does. There's always a story behind, everything, and so everything correlates. Everything makes sense. It's not like you're like going here and there and different directions.
It was on track.
It was on track. There was a timeline there.
And I've been asked to tell the story so many times before that it's funny. It changes every time. Like I'll remember a totally different set of details, but one of these days I'll write a book or something like that.
Yeah, I have the same exact glass cups, dude.
Do you?
Yeah, the little bubbles. Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah. That's synchronicity right there.
Yeah. All right. So about astrology, I want to get a little bit more in depth with that. I know there's like a lot of just I would say connections there in the astrological world with you. Can you elaborate a little bit more about any teachers that taught you about it, or you kind of like were like I would say not influenced by kind of like someone was a great a great influence on you with
Yeah, this
astrology.
girl Rachel Goldmeyer, she so originally it started where I was giving her a reading, and I was doing tarot and I was doing intuition, and then she was like, "Hey, would you like an astrology reading?" And I was like, "I mean, sure, I'll take a natal chart reading." That was at the point where I still was like, "Oh, this is ridiculous." So I was like, "Okay, sure, you can try it." And so she proceeded for like an hour and a half. It was an hour-long session that we sort of traded for, and she it was supposed to just be an hour-long session, but it was at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. It might have even been longer than that. And she was just laying out just like cold, hard truths back to back to back. And she was just she would not only explain the philosophies I subscribed to, which was really impressive, but the way that I think about them and the events that cause them. And I was like, okay, so I've got to start studying astrology immediately, because this is the most mind-blowing thing I've ever experienced in my life. And so after that point, I was like, hey, I'll teach you this, this, and this if you can teach me astrology. And so we proceeded to work together, and she had this really incredible system where she would draw parallels between of course, the planets, signs, and houses, but she did so in a very naturalistic way. She's an Aries with Cancer, Moon, Scorpio rising, and so she's really good at sort of concocting these really interesting overarching theories and bringing them all together based on what your psychology is. And so and I believe these days, I haven't talked to her in a minute, but I believe these days she teaches classes in person on astrology, and she does that in Missouri, I think. So definitely I'm gonna have to reach out to her after this and just say thanks again, because she really made like a huge impact in the way I do everything now. Because once you really get into astrology, it starts to retroactively change the way you look at tarot, the way that you look at intuition, the way you look at, essentially like any spiritual practice, because, the energies you're dealing with, the universal energies, are clear archetypes for what you're expressing through other mediums. So anyways, it was really really intense, and we spent months and months and months working on it. And her number one advice was essentially just look at as many charts as you possibly can. Like if you're people that you're incredibly familiar with, as well as people that you have no knowledge of whatsoever, that you then have the ability, like a public figure that you don't know about, or an actor or actress you don't know about, and then you can research them after you've done your analysis. And it was just mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your healing abilities, because they're super unique. I understand that you are very intuitive, or you kind of like straight channel when you do your healing, and you've never had any actual technical background with that. Can you explain a little bit more about that part of you?
Yeah, well, energy healing it's funny, because that's one of the things that in a public sense, I think it's one of the things I've done the least, but in a personal sense, that is one of my most powerful passions. Is first of all, June 1st, 2017, that's where sort of that began, and it was an unexpected side effect of this sort of like reawakening situation where I put away the books and I let myself just dive into the energy. And it was so crystal clear that this energy that, that we're all made up of, that we're all connected by, was something that, just intuitively, you of course feel the relationship of the ability to push and pull this energy. And I feel like deep down we know it. I feel like we all subconsciously understand it already, and it only takes like a moment of sort of experiencing it to suddenly have it retroactively change your view on life and on it definitely changed my view on spirits, because the feeling of doing energy healing, which I would simply describe as the intentional manipulation of energy via your thoughts and intention, in order to heal or clear or maneuver energy that is currently in a particular stagnant place. Because usually, it's like essentially sticks getting caught up in a river, and then it eventually creates a dam. Like that's how it sort of feels. But so with energy healing, it was something that I had definitely talked to a few people about their experience with energy healing, and several people had mentioned Reiki. My sister was a Reiki master, and of course she still is. Brianna Dell, definitely check out her stuff. You could find her on Facebook and everything. She's awesome. But the one thing about Reiki, as I was considering going to learn it, was that I felt this natural connection to energy already, and it felt like to learn Reiki would in a way be invalidating for me, invalidating what I had already sort of explored and discovered, within myself. And so later, though, I did take some time to just sort of academically study it, study some of the literature of what a lot of people teach. And there's a particular set of tenets related to Reiki, like a sort of like a code of ethics, like you would have if you were just a regular medical practitioner. And I thought it was interesting. I don't have anything against it by any means, but there was some parts of the philosophy that for me felt, kind of dogmatic. They felt like they were rules that that to me didn't seem like they would be universally applicable, and therefore it's not something that kind of organically works, in my opinion. And so anyways, so that's not to put down Reiki by any means. I think if you have the right intention, then that's everything you need. But so I continued exploring energy healing, and just, I suppose, in private, I used to offer it as an actual service of mine. I might teach it in a mentorship, because I don't really do readings anymore. I stopped doing those back in September. But for a mentorship, I might teach someone basically how they can sort of find their path into it, how they can sort of explore with energy techniques. And I think it's really important because of this one thing in particular, which is that energy healing, if self-taught with just like a little nudge from someone who's done it before, is something that gets you to trust yourself. It gets you to trust yourself because there is no data on it. There's no data that you can look at. There's no right or wrongs. Literally everything is formless, and it has to come from you actually trusting your intuition. And I think that the lack of trust and intuition is like the number one issue. People feeling like they're on sometimes and off sometimes, that they go through these energy spikes and energy dips. To me, it all comes down to essentially not genuinely trusting your intuition, not genuinely trusting yourself. And if you lack that self-trust, then of course, your subconscious knows that. You can hide that from your own conscience. You can tell yourself whatever you want, but your subconscious, the majority of your brain, it knows. It understands that you don't trust yourself, and it will act accordingly. Just like if it was a person that knew you didn't trust yourself, then they wouldn't be able to trust you with communicating certain things to you, with any type of consistency. So yeah, that's my large rant on energy healing.
No, that's great. Yeah, I totally agree on that. I feel like it's different methods to use energy healing or whatnot based on whatever has been taught. It's good, but ultimately you have to make it your own. It's ultimately your intuition that needs to be relied upon, not what someone else is dictating for you, you know? And so to me, that's very important. And that's why I wanted to bring that up, because a lot of people believe that you have to have a certification in order for you to be an energy healer.
Mm.
And, you know, it's based on, you know, again, lack of opportunity to explore other methods, as well as to trust that you are already an energy healer. You just need to, that little push, like you stated before.
Yeah.
And so I would always recommend anyone who is interested in getting like any type of mentorship, I would always recommend Jax, because he's such a great teacher. He's very patient. And he really does like have like, he's very detailed oriented as well. Like we've established with
And what I would do is I would re-recommend you to Starry. I'd be like, I know she recommended you to me, but actually you have to go to her. And then, so then she would do the same thing. And it would be
we'll go back and forth, you know. But yeah, I feel there is always going to be a different method for everyone. You know, not everyone has the same views, as well as not everyone has the same methods when it comes to energy healing.
yeah, and like all forms of thing, you know, like there's of course audio learners versus visual learners versus kinesthetic learners. There's people that are strong in hand-eye coordination, people who aren't, you know, people who are strong in like spatial IQ, and people who aren't. And so like we all naturally are different, and we've got, you know, we're all sort of united with the ways in which we are the same, but we're all naturally different. And so we're all gonna need different ways of learning something or finding our way. And our way is going to be the best way. You know, if you try and just sort of hammer in this dogma and like a list of instructions to someone who is a kinesthetic learner, it's just not, you know, they're going to think that they failed, when really it's just that they need to be more explorative. You know, they need to just explore more in their own way, and what seems like it's imperfect, but then leads them to their masterpiece. Because I think of energy work in a very similar way that I think of art. You know, it just feels like they're, and I'm this like super Libra, but it's like they're one and the same. It's like an art form. So
yeah, exactly. Yep, you are correct.
Oh, I'm correct. Oh, good.
Correct. Okay. So let's talk about what you're up to now. Like, I know a lot of people are curious, like, what's Jax up to? Because
I know
he hasn't been.
I know, and I'm not trying to like build suspense or anything like that. I've been working on several things in private, and it's not like it's some sort of top secret laboratory or something, but there is a laboratory that's involved in it. And so essentially, so I work on this nonprofit, IITS, the International Institute of Temple Sciences. And we have a few projects that we're working on, and we're really excited to surprise the collective with. And I can't speak on most of them, honestly, but there's one in particular I can't speak on. It's sort of the most exciting one, which is the creation of a building. It's going to be, I've got to be very careful about not saying the wrong thing. So I'll say it's a building inspired by the Zodiac. And it is going to be basically this open spiritual event center that, you know, even with COVID restrictions and the minimum or maximum of 25% capacity in some cases in buildings, the way that we're creating this building is a way that definitely increases our ability to get people, you know, there and to come together, to have yoga classes, to have free astrology classes, free general spiritual classes, computer laboratories and art centers. Like we've got a pretty miraculous idea that we're about to sort of bring out into the collective, and it's really exciting. And so what I've been doing in the background is essentially, you know, getting the detail work done of what, you know, needs to happen in order to get this created, and who wants to be involved. And one of the most miraculous things, you know, I moved from California to Decatur, Illinois, in July 14th of this year. And so what I was ecstatic about was that literally every person I've met here and I've talked to have, one, never heard of anyone trying to do anything like that in their town or even in the general area, and two, everyone is excited to be a part of it. Like, there is no difficult search for volunteers or difficult search for people who want to help with this. Literally anyone I mention it to says that they are gung-ho about being involved to whatever degree they can. It's like it's the most exciting blessing ever to have all of these people who want to do this. And especially right now, especially with, you know, the public word is that there's a second wave right now, and that you know, there's might be more lockdowns in order. We'll see. But regardless of exactly how that plays out, now more than ever, there should be high quality free spiritual content out there, the ability to educate people on this, the ability to essentially help people just help themselves and have all the tools to find their own meaning and power. And so then that sort of brings up the question, you know, which thing in particular will like give you meaning? And it's like, more so, these are pathways to you finding your interpretation of God, or your interpretation of the universal energy, or the gods, or whatever particular term you like. But essentially, you know, finding your philosophy, finding your pathway. And that's what we're sort of an open canvas for. So if you want to check us out, we're at templesciences.com. We're about to be putting out some pretty exciting news on there. So definitely stay posted on that. We're also on Instagram as International Institute of Temple Sciences, Temple Sciences. And then on Facebook, International Institute of Temple Sciences. So yeah, definitely check it out and stay tuned, because we're about to be making some really exciting announcements this fall, actually. And that's where some of these big projects are beginning. But I've essentially been working with Brooke, who you had on before. She is our director of vision. She's absolutely incredible. She's this Pisces who has channeled so much of the way that we can bring this vision together, and doing so from such an honest and genuine point of view, you know, doing it from the right intention. Like, you know, her wanting to help people, her wanting to bring people together, her wanting to basically do something that seems just so unrealistic, especially right now. And because it's so unrealistic, it's like, it's just flowing right through and it's just happening. And then of course, Tara Winters, who is a Taurus. She is, you know, in charge of finance and in charge of, you know, basically, you know, she's been a part of so many nonprofits before, that with her, you know, she's focusing on the aspect of, you know, building the relationships that we have to build, and to, you know, make the connections we have to make. And then of course we have several other people, the Peace Dealer, yourself, you know, and some other people that are going to be joining here pretty soon. And it's growing and expanding quite a bit. And this is something that we didn't expect it to grow so fast. We didn't expect for some of these seemingly insane possibilities to actually come to fruition. So it's really exciting. And I'm, you know, on social media, I naturally am not someone who, you know, talks on there a whole lot. You know, I for my spiritual business, you know, I would do posts and I would do different things. And in a way, being a part of IITS, I've really gone behind the scenes, and I now work like so one-on-one with, you know, a couple people at a time, or a couple people every few weeks. And instead of it being, you know, much more out in the open. But I'll definitely be, you know, returning. I haven't gone anywhere, but I will be returning. And I'm really excited for that as well, because I actually do miss, you know, putting out daily videos and different things like that. You know, it's after a certain amount of time, you're just like, this has been a great vacation, you know, from that. It's a much different energy that I feel like I use now. But yeah, that's some of the projects that I've been involved with. And I hate to be like vague or secretive, because I'm not unhappy about anything I'm doing right now, but I actually have a couple other projects I'm working on, but both of them are also classified until I get permission from a couple other people. So I'll just have to leave it a little bit vague, but say it's going really well.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this is going to be definitely very transformative in the way they're done. This is a very, I would say, a very Aquarian type of spiritual.
Almost like Age of Aquarian type of energy.
Very, very, yeah. And it's good because, we're so used to having that mentality that we have to, make money in order for us to be sustained and all this stuff or whatnot. But I feel like your method and Tara's, and then of course of Brooks, we're giving, we're using universal energy to do this, to do this work. It's a transferable energy, it's a flow, and it's a give and a receive energy too. It's not just some monetary thing. And so more or less, like I feel like your purposes for this work is going to be very revolutionary, very Aquarian age, and it's definitely it's the future of humanity here.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's how it feels to me. Very, very futuristic. Very like this is what we're evolving into.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's definitely interesting timing for it all to happen astrologically. December 21st is coming. We got the Great Conjunction that is going to be out of this world. And it's funny because so I would love to actually tell a little bit of a story of IITS and sort of its foundations. So IITS was created originally by Brooke and Tara, and they had this vision for it, and they just weren't sure about like the specifics of how like it actually mechanically will be. So I do a reading for Brooke back in December of 2019, and we start doing a mentorship as well. And so we're talking, and she recommends that I work with Tara as well. So we do a reading with Tara, and all of us, they just briefly mentioned the concept of the idea that they had. And I was like, whoa, yes, this is absolutely yes. So we started talking about that, pretty seriously in March. It was about March before we started engaging in a serious dialogue about that. And I went out to visit a couple times in April and May, and we started getting more and more concrete with it. And in July, I just had to move out here and like really get started because we had lots of people who are kind of gung-ho and ready to go. So it was interesting though, the point of all that, when I did the readings for Brooke and Tara, I was talking about, okay, yeah, this month I'm definitely detecting, and it was like several months ahead of when any of this would have made any sense at the time. But I was like, there's this Libra energy that is definitely going to be involved in some project that you're working on. I really feel like Tara's involved with this too. They later told me about IITS and their vision for it. And it was maybe a couple months after the original conversations about that I realized that, the predictions from astrology were essentially giving us all this guidebook of exactly what to look out for and do. It's just at the time, I had no idea that that's what I'd be predicting. It's partially my own future a little bit. And so it was, it's just really magical the way that the synchronicities since then have played out, the way that all these chart readings just essentially with astrology, if you get into it and you're really listening to your intuition, you don't have to be a master memorizer of every single astrological concept because no one on earth is. But, if you learn astrology and just use your intuition and just do your best to trust yourself, you'll be able to predict all kinds of things that happen in your life, like all sorts of crossroads that are coming up so that you can make your choices and know what choice you're really making. And so it's a really powerful tool. It was very powerful for me, who leans analytical, but who knows deep down I need to be as intuitive and sort of flowy as possible and not be so rigid. And I'm Aquarius rising, so I definitely lead with a propensity for dogma, really. And so because of that, I try and be super conscious of always stepping in the direction of intuition and flow and allowing, being open to new experiences, basically being like the fool in tarot versus being, super, super rigid.
Yes, exactly. What's your Neptune?
My Neptune?
Mm-hmm.
Like my Neptune placement in my natal? Capricorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really
Capricorn.
It's funny because I have a lot of Capricorn in my chart too, and I'm just like, I'm surprised that I'm so intuitive. Like it's like the Pisces moon really pushes that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, everyone born near me, like around, well, of course, and you know this as well. We all had Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune in our Capricorns, and I think that was really interesting because, you know, if you look at the way that millennials are looked at spiritually, and the way that we adopted a very interesting philosophy around spirituality, and it worked for good, and it worked to make a lot of really silly mistakes as well. Like, you know, of course, on one hand, with the Uranus and Capricorn, we have this very sudden proudness of like rejecting the ancient ways, rejecting ancient religions, and rightly so. I mean, there's plenty of things to reject in it, but it has to be healthy and it has to be balanced, says the Libra, because, you know, if, you know, ancient religions founded societies and founded all of these cultures, and a new spirituality by itself is perfect. And I think that, you know, everyone should explore their own spirituality. But if you start to make your own spirituality dogmatic, then you're doing the exact same thing, and you're untested, and you're young. Regardless, even if you're like 70 or 80 years old, you're young in comparison to any of these religions, or even the interpretations of our modern interpretation of these religions. So it's not like I'm saying believe in any of them, but the point is like we owe a lot to religions other than war. Like, yes, there have been wars completely brought on by religion and only religion, but there's a whole lot more in society that we also have that we owe religion as well. And it will help us to have a healthy respect as well as the skepticism we already have, while we're forming our new sort of identity and forming our new spirituality.
Yes, exactly. Correct. I honestly agree on that, because it's just like you can't really I would say that like everything sucks from like the ancient world. It's like, because we actually learned a lot. Like, we're here, you know what I mean, for a reason. Yeah. Like, we've progressed, we've evolved, but we still do have, you know, foundations that were built back then with spirituality and beliefs. You know, like the belief of the spirit world comes from the ancient times, you know. Yeah. And even in Christianity, there's a belief of a spiritual place, which is, you know, heaven and hell, you know, things like that. And so that being said, it is up to you, intuitively speaking, to choose what you believe in or what doesn't make sense to you, you know.
Yeah exactly. You know, and it's funny because even we have a very interesting interpretation of religion in the modern age. And for me, like, I always go back to like when I was 18, because when I was 18, I essentially, like, you know, I had spiritual experiences, but I was making these assumptions about the possible like scientific reasons of why maybe that happened, or that it was purely scientific, like what we call spirituality. And so I was so just thinking like, oh, these idiots with their religion. And, you know, I thought I knew everything. I thought I was like dead right about everything. And then, you know, you just get older and you realize that, you know, while you can with one hand reject the actual teachings of what they're saying, or you can reject the inaccuracies or the things that seem like contradictions to you, which is all true, you also have to look at the genuine psychological map that was presented by ancient peoples that didn't know anything, right? We talk about the ancient past as if there's these like, there's a bunch of idiotic cavemen running around. And the reality is like I mean, just the tarot is at least the 15th century, you know, at least that far back. And you're talking about like an advanced Jungian psychological map of the human condition. And it's not alone. You know, the zodiac is an advanced map of the human condition. And, you know, we're talking before the Vedic text, arguably, you can make that argument. And we clearly had truly advanced knowledge. I think that the number one, you know, sin of the ancient people is the very same sin that we clearly are committing on Facebook Lives these days, which is we have a genuine spiritual experience of some kind, and we desperately want to know what the answers are. So we kind of just like listen to the first person who will give us like hard, clear, the facts about those particular things, and we just sort of accept it. And then, new religions start to form. And the interesting thing is, not only are they forming quickly though, and this is actually a positive thing, they're forming and dying very quickly, which is hopefully, a form of evolution that leads to some sort of divine open-mindedness. Because originally, in the early 2000s, it started to look like society was just cherry picking the cafeteria of different things that they liked. They'd pick a little bit of Buddhism, they pick a little bit of Christianity, and they just pluck them all together just out of convenience. But there's starting to be this, a more open universalism that's part of that, and I think is actually a good thing. And it's part of our evolution to be humble enough to say that we don't know all the answers, because we don't. And there's a whole lot of people out there right now on Facebook, Instagram, and stuff that are talking like they have it all figured out, like they have all of the answers of the universe, and it's absolutely not the case at this time.
No.
Yeah.
This is funny because we're talking like in this pattern with the transits. For example, today we have a lot of energy coming from the North Node in Gemini, and that's one of the key things about the North Node in Gemini is like, yes, explore, yes, be curious, but remember that you are a student still, remember that you are not always correct. And so I love that you're bringing this up. You're like hitting on that North Node in Gemini.
Yeah. Well, and and don't be afraid of being open-minded and at the same time being willing to make a statement. Like, so for instance, with Geminis, they're so unafraid to say something that they think that might be perceived for sure as crazy. But the bravery it takes to do that, and the trust in your own intuition, ironically, is going to lead them to a bunch of genuine successes, by following that path. And so now's the time to do it. Like, be yourself and speak your exact truth, and don't be afraid of what other people are going to say, because people definitely, especially right now, especially with everything that's going on in humanity and in our culture, a lot of people are just feel like they have to edit so much that they're unwilling to have an opinion on something.
Yeah.
And it's reality, like we need to all, because that, and what's more importantly, we aren't asking questions of people because we know that they're not wanting to give a full answer to it, or they'll give some sort of canned answer that's sort of acceptable to all sides. And so it's an important time to be able to ask the honest, difficult questions, and to be able to also honestly give an answer.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Especially now.
Yeah, especially now, right? When you're just like, you don't know what's the truth, right? And so it's very important to question everything. Like, that's what I tell people, like, don't take sides, like question everything, observe everything, don't have people influence you into believing their beliefs.
I know people should have to earn your allegiance.
Yeah,
they can't just waltz into your loyalty, like you know what I mean, like to a reasonable degree. Like if you subscribe to a particular person, you hear them go on this speech or this rant, and you're just like, oh, I vibe with that and I'm all in. It's like, take a moment, like let this person show you all of themselves, let them show you their flaws as well, which you're going to have as well, and let them show you what their philosophy is when it's applied, and let them show you their philosophy when they're dealing with people in everyday life rather than on their platform. Like that, it's an important time to have a genuine, honest look at both sides of things right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's a lot of masks. The masks go on right away.
I know, it's funny, like the sunlight is
I was like,
I'm just gonna go over it.
But
masks off.
The mask.
It reminds me of that Joyner Lucas remix for the, I don't remember if it's like Mask On is the original song or Mask Off. But I think his remix is Mask On. But Joyner Lucas, you guys should definitely, it's a crazy rap song.
Yeah. So, like you said, it does feel like as soon as the cameras go on, the masks go on for a lot of people, and it is the I would say the illusion, of a lot of that unreachable popularity or celebrity type of thing, and then genuine people who just turn on the camera and say what the hell they want to say. Like I would say always Gemini. I always see Geminis do that.
It's always specifically Gemini. Yeah, and it's impressive.
They don't get that much of that God complex, because they're not, they're human. And so then you have those other people who are like the God complex, or people believe them to be, better than them or whatever. Then you have all these people following them, and they're not even leaders. So it's just kind of like, you see that with our society, but it's shifting slowly. It's shifting because the more genuine people, wanting to help type of people like Brooke and you and Tara and everyone else that I personally know, thank God, that you guys are wanting to genuinely assist humanity to better themselves, to be independent, to be empowered. The more that's shifting away from the we have to follow a leader mentality that society has had for.
Well, it's just like, how is following leaders like worked out so far?
Not that much.
Like, I mean, how's it worked out so far in like any aspect of life? Like an overly domineering partner, like an overly domineering friend, a political leader, to themselves to sort of like the square root, them to the full. It never works out well for you. But what always works out well for you is following yourself and genuinely learning what your belief is and then following your belief. That works out well because that is something that actually makes a difference in your immediate life. It makes a difference in your world. It makes a difference in your destiny, in the destiny that you create for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm super excited for what IITS is doing, and for the future, because these are the, I would say, morals and ethics that you guys are going to use, for the work that you guys are using for the work that you guys are doing. And that's extraordinary, because not a lot, like I said before, we have that mindset of having to push forward and have some type of competition to be this big platform.
I know, and it's just like, that's the worst. Like, I mean, Libras are so about mood and vibe and aesthetic and all that. And it's like, it really just kills the mood. It just kills all the moods, not just like sexually. I mean, like, it just sort of kills the general vibe of life when people are really trying to push the cult thing.
Yeah.
It's like, cults just aren't fun.
You're like, they're just not fun.
That's my final statement of the day. Is that cults are not fun, and that is my belief.
Cults are not fun, guys. Stop.
Cults are the opposite of fun. Don't do it, but don't do it not because I told you not to do it. Don't do it because you want to not do it. Yeah. Otherwise, don't not join a cult because I said so. Otherwise, we miss the whole
and they're gonna blame you. See, I didn't join a cult, and now my life is miserable. Just kidding.
Amen.
But anyway, do you have anything else you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah. What else? Well, I would love to just pull a couple of cards. I haven't done, any like live readings or anything like that, or
awesome.
Daily tarot in quite a long time. So I'd love to do something.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Right here and now. Ooh, so this is for the collective. This is so hilarious with the moon in Scorpio right now. Okay. So first we have death. So there's not even like a metaphor here. So death, essentially, this energy of this card, and this is the Chinese tarot. This is a really cool deck. I love the animation for this. But death in the tarot is this Scorpio energy. It's the energy of death and rebirth. It's allowing your past self to die so that your future self can be reborn and be renewed. And oftentimes it's about, especially with the original tarot cards, if you look at the illustrations, there's often, the pale horseman of death. And then there's all of these different people looking at death in different ways. And so that's really important, especially for what's going on in society right now, because you'll have one person who's trying to avoid it, one person who's looking directly at it, one person who's angry at it, one person who's laughing at it, one person who's weeping. And so it's interesting because, you know, regardless of death itself or the metaphorical death of our transformation of, you know, our psychology, how are you looking at your own death and rebirth? Like, how are you looking at that right now? And it's funny because then Knight of Wands, it's like, are you willing to look at it with bravery? Like, are you willing to be loving enough to yourself that you say, you know, instead of being in a place where you're making all these choices that are safe cages, and are you instead going to break free from those cages and make a choice off of passion, and not just some sort of hedonistic passion of like, I'm choosing this because I feel like at this moment, genuine passion, like a genuine drive to see a fire lit in this world in a particular way, and to see the way that it sort of transforms, you know, the forests and the rivers and streams. And finally, you know, the Nine of Coins, which once again asks the question in a very Taurus way, are you willing to update your value systems? Are you willing to look at the way in which you expect things from life, the way that you expect things from your friends especially, but from your relationship, the way that you expect it from the outcomes of every situation? You know, it's funny, I stopped doing readings in September, but there was like just, you know, there was a couple people that said like, oh, I just want one last reading, if that's okay. I know you stopped doing them in September. And before, financially, I was in a place where, you know, I definitely was, you know, trying to book readings and things like that, but literally not having a care in the world about any readings coming. I ended up having more readings come in after I quit doing readings than I think I had in like the 6 months prior combined. So it's like with Nine of Coins, you being in a place where you're open to accepting abundance and essentially open to accepting that you actually deserve it. Because like we can all say the words of like, yeah, I'm going to think positive. Yeah, I'm going to manifest money into my life and all that stuff. It's like, but do you actually feel like you deserve it? Like, do you feel like you're ready to deserve it and then to live a life that proves that you deserve it in a way to yourself, not to anyone else? But, you know, are you willing to live a life that you're making these differences in other people's life in whatever way you do, whether that's being an artist or a musician or starting a business, whatever your way of changing the world is, because it shouldn't have to look in any singular, you know, sort of Coke can reprinted way. But this is the time for us. This is the universe offering us an opportunity to allow our past self to die, to make a new choice, to live with passion and to live with our inner fire. And then finally to update our value systems and decide who we want to be, what we deserve to be, and if we're going to expect that from our friends and our family and the people around us. So it feels like it's a lot of people have been worried about this Scorpio moon and thinking how dark it's going to be, how, you know, wicked and all this stuff. And this is going to be a beautiful Scorpio new moon. Like it's going to be one of the most amazing moons we've ever had. So get ready for it. Get ready for it.
I fucking love Scorpio energy every time.
I know.
It's just, to me,
they're my second house, so I dig it.
I feel like mutable because it's all me. I'm all hugely mutable energy, and so to me, it's like hell yeah, death, you know, like bring it on. You know, transformation, everything like that. I feel like it's super easier for me, you know, in comparison to someone who might have not, or they think they're not benefiting from it or whatnot, or they think, you know, the way that they've been doing things, they're in that comfort zone and they don't like being uncomfortable. And that's all it is. It's like just being willing to be uncomfortable, being willing to accept that not everything's working out the way you thought it would work out, you know, being realistic, I would say.
Yeah.
Very Libra-ish type of or air sign type of look into it. But I really feel that's important. It's important.
No, it's like not only seek discomfort, but like hunt it down.
Yeah.
Like look for the good discomfort, you know, like any of the things that you're like, man, I'm going to be devastated by this, like at first, but I know what it leads to, you know. I like becoming a part of this or being a part of this or overcoming this. that leads to me being my ultimate self. Because if it feels impossible now, then once I've done it, like what could possibly feel impossible after that? And so, yeah, this is definitely a good time for it.
Yeah. And, Friday the 13th, especially today, because we're going into that scorpionic moon, this is the goddess energy here. It's rising. Friday itself, its meaning in French means, Venus. And then you have, of course.
Oh, so it's a sex holiday.
Yeah, sexy.
Okay. Yep.
But that's the number 13. It actually represents, the lunar cycles, as well as in Aztec mythology, the number 13 is ascension. And that means a connection to source creator. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, source
I was
creator.
like, no wonder I'm feeling so just like on point today.
Source creator
is awesome.
Dual energy is masculine and feminine, and so the rising of the masculine, accepting the feminine, is important. And so this is a very powerful day. A lot of people, like you said, they have this very negative connotation about Scorpio energy.
I know it's
as well as Friday the 13th, and it's not supposed to be that way. It's actually a very glorious, very ascended energy type of connection, and that's why the death has to happen in order for the birth to be commenced, and that's the transition that we have to make.
Yeah. Because change is as scary as death, but death is required for change.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So.
Yes. Oh, that was so great. Thank you.
That was awesome.
All right. So you guys, once again, we have all of Jax's links in the description of this video. If you guys are interested in learning more about what IITS does, or if you guys are willing to donate to IITS, please go onto the description and you'll see the links, and just click on those links below, and then follow them on Facebook as well as Instagram. So that's all you'll have, where Jax is going to give you guys all this information, of course. That's how you can reach him.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank
you for having me on today. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much. Is there any words of wisdom that you would like to?
Oh, God, I might have just spent all my words of wisdom, but just straight off the dome, just straight intuition, I would say it's very interesting because right at this particular moment, everyone is looking for fast answers. Everyone's looking for the energy of declaration and to say that they know for a fact that this in particular is happening. This to me is like the biggest time to maybe make those declarations about yourself and about what you're going to do. But when it comes to people outside of yourself, like everyone else, or events and situations outside of yourself, this is definitely a time to be very thoughtful and very observant of what's really happening and allowing yourself to be in the experience of life right now. Because to me, what I'm just noticing is a whole lot of people making a whole lot of declarations, and it's ending up backfiring, and they might end up being right about those declarations. But in the meantime, it's all jagged and incorrect, or it's possibly going to become incorrect. And so this is definitely a really good time to make your declarations to yourself, because if they're real declarations and they're going to come true, then you're the one that you have to answer to anyway. And as far as making declarations or being really just sort of expecting all these different things from the world and from situations outside of yourself, now definitely does not feel like the time to do that. So that would be my number one thing right now.
All right. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your mysticism